and welcome to Glass Half Full Reviews, Game of Thrones edition. And today we're going to be talking about the final episode of Season 4, The Children. And just as per usual, because we're stuffed with plot lines this particular episode, I'm going to restrict myself to each one for a specific time limit. So we're going to get 2 minutes for each of them, except for the King's Landing one, which I'm going to give myself a solid 3 minutes. So, it's just because so much happens, so I feel like I need a little bit more time. I'm going to wrap it up, and then I'm going to just sort of talk about what I'm going to do next, which is a little bit interesting, I think, just dealing with the season as a whole. Alright, so let's get started. And the first plot line I'm going to talk about is everything north of the Wall with our old buddy, Jon Snow. Okay, so let's start talking about Jon Snow and everything north of the Wall. In general, I find this particular finale pretty satisfying. It was nice to see Stannis come in, giving the old connection to Ned, and how Jon is sort of maybe he's learning some lessons about how you can't just be black and white about honor. You know, he tries to do his best to actually think about things from a complicated perspective. I mean, he's right there with Mance, who's saying, "Oh, we're not gonna... I said, we are not gonna deal, boy." And wait, that might be what that actor did in a different show. But in this particular instance, I'd like to see it. Yeah, some of it was a little... I mean, you had the horses come in, and it's like, oh, where'd they come from? What's the logistics? Now, the truth is, in the books, it's not exactly clear, of course, where he comes from, and I thought they gave it a little away, but not enough. I mean, the truth is, we don't have that many episodes from when we last saw them, so how did they get here so fast when it seems to take other characters so long to get other places? So that part didn't quite make sense. However, I did like it. I really liked when you saw Jon and Melisandre kind of lock eyes. They played her theme music. It's like, there's the flame. Something's going on there. And in the book, something definitely do happen. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do and what they're going to change, but I'm really looking forward to that. It was nice to see the stuff with Tormund and Ygritte leading her to rest and, setting her on fire north of the Wall where she comes from. I think it ended up that the finale of his adventures was all right, even if in general I had some issues. But I'm not going to get into that right now. This is my general thoughts of the season. In this episode, I thought it worked very well. Where was Alliser Thorne? I don't know. He was gone. He was missing. So is he dead? I doubt it. I mean, okay, we're done. Let's move on to the next storyline. I think I'm going to get into a little old friend named Bran. Okay, so Bran's storyline. This is crazy that they accelerated it so much. We're sort of at a much later point in the books than we are for any of the other characters. I guess this is sort of where Bran's story becomes more interesting, but I don't know. I mean, again, it's always hard to adapt his stuff because his has always been the weirdest and the most magical and the most CGI-ish. A lot of it was just him inside his wolf's head and dealing with that kind of disconnect. And more weird, creepy stuff from Jojen. Of course, now the kid's dead, so I guess we're not getting any more of that. I really wanted to see more heartache from Mira. I mean, she just lost her brother. Sure, he's saying it's for a greater cause, because he can see what's happening, but she has no idea about that. Come on, I want to see a little bit of that. Where's the loss? Come on. It was nice to see a little bit of Hodor action. I love Hodor, but, and it's interesting, for not a second is Bran thinking about the actual morality of taking over a person, even if it is, of course, to save their lives, because Hodor is very childlike. He can't really think about actually fighting a skeleton. He's very strong, so, he does okay, but he doesn't exactly have fighting training, and who knows how long it's been since Bran has actually swung a sword. It's been quite a while, so, how on practice is he? I did like to see the skeletons, At first I was like, well, this is a little weird, but they had an interesting jerkiness to them that I was kind of okay with. I mean, logically, does it make sense? I mean, skeletons is sort of a different level of magic than we had seen before with the zombies. And we had seen that the zombies could fall apart, they could be destroyed, even if they sort of kept going. In some ways, they didn't regrow themselves back together. They just kept going as long as they could. So I guess that kind of makes sense in a sense. Sort of. So that was fine. And, it really got into the magic of things. I was ultimately not that impressed by that particular scene. So I think we'll have to move on. Let's head across the sea to a different sort of magic. And let's look at Daenerys. Oh, Khaleesi. It was interesting when they had this stuff earlier in the season with the sheep, and I was like, oh, okay, so I thought maybe they were going to do the kid earlier, because it's something that essentially happens in the book, and you sort of hear about stuff that happened with the goats, but they showed it. It's like, oh, okay, so they're saving the real thing for later, which obviously they did. And I thought it was interesting how Barristan kind of gave her interesting counsel, because he said something that seemed insightful, saying, oh yeah, and this is they're going to take advantage of this. But he didn't really speak up beforehand, which I think sort of, it's one of the issues with Barristan is that he's a reactor. He doesn't really think ahead in that sense. He's not really that politician type, but he's good at analysis after the fact. So he's telling her exactly like, oh yeah, this is what you did wrong, but he didn't say anything beforehand. I mean, Barristan's an interesting guy. I hope to see a little bit more of that in the next season. I mean, yeah, it's a tragic thing, and obviously Drogon is the actual dragon that was out there doing it, and she's taking out on the two dragons that are the least worst behaved. As far as we know, they haven't killed any kids, or even any humans for that matter. So I guess it's interesting. It's nice to see that. I like to see that kind of emotion that she was showing, where the dragons just don't understand because they're very, like Hodor, very childlike, and Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. Oh, my Hodors. Yeah, just thinking about those dragons like other Hodors, it's kind of depressing and sad. I feel bad for those Hodors. I mean, you know what I'm saying. I guess we didn't have any resolution for the Grey Worm Missandei stuff. It's just out there, but fine. That's not really a huge plot. And this was more of a serious thing to end the season on. I mean, obviously there's this theme of children for everything all over the season. So, I think we're going to move on to our second to last plot line, which is everything to do with Arya. All right. Boom. All right, so let's start talking about Arya. Arya and the Hound moving on, and Brienne and Pod run into them. Something that doesn't happen in the books, fine with it. It works. It's nice to see a little bit of back and forth between Brienne and Arya's like, look at this. Wow. She's wearing armor. She's got a huge sword. She can tell that Brienne has something. So it was sort of a nice added bit of tragedy that it was not going to go well. And you knew it wasn't going to go well. And the truth is, the Hound makes pretty convincing arguments. He's like, what? You got a sword from the Lannisters. Can you explain it? And Brienne's like, well, your mother told me, but she's just saying it. How can... Arya doesn't know that Brienne is exceptionally honorable. How could she? And also, Arya's kind of moved past that kind of honorable thing. And it was interesting to see that fight. Now, I heard some people complain, well, the Hound is one of the best fighters around. He couldn't lose to Brienne. I mean, Brienne, blah, 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 blah. Brienne's not untalented. I mean, she won against Loras, who's supposed to be really good. And the Hound was also injured. He had an infected shoulder from biting guy. Biter is his name. And I think it was pretty fine. I mean, they both fought very dirty, and I think it was fun. It was nicely choreographed. It was good to see that kind of thing. And of course, when it ended with the Arya, my opinion is she was being both cruel and kind. She couldn't kill this guy who had protected her for so long. She couldn't quite do that. She couldn't do what the Hound had done for that other older guy. On the other hand, she was also being cruel by not giving the Hound what he wanted from her. I don't know. I like that. I like that kind of like it's complicated. Of course, it's nice to see her heading off for Braavos, too. I mean, that was the only way this episode could have ended for her. It had to be that kind of thing. And, she's gotten colder and she's made more decisions. She could have just decided to go to Brienne at this point, but she didn't. All right. So, finally, we're going to head over to King's Landing for an exceptionally long 3-minute talk. Ugh, it's going to be crazy. And then I'll wrap it up. So, let's head over to King's Landing. Okay, so now we're getting into King's Landing stuff. We're starting with the mountain and Cersei, and I really wanted to see more anything from the mountain. I don't know if this is how it was written, or it's because he's not such a great actor. I really have no idea. But in the books, he's basically screaming in agony, and it's like cathartic for people who hated the mountain in the books. And here he's just like sitting there, like, he's nothing. He could be dead for all we know. Is he supposed to be dead? It's so unclear. I didn't care for that, even though it was nice to see a little bit of setup of Kuiper and stuff, because I think he ends up being kind of an important character. In the end, it's just like, I did kind of like showing a little bit of the nutty and craziness of Cersei trying to take control of her life. I mean, would she ever actually reveal that her kids are from incest? No, of course. I would hope not, considering that would completely ruin her chances to be Queen Regent and would screw up the lives of her children, which, I feel like that's what matters to her, almost as much as herself matters to her. But Tywin might be thinking, she might be crazy enough to do this. And she really might be. I mean, the whole aftermath of that, the reason she went to Jaime is clear to me anyway, is because she was just so turned on by winning finally against her father, or at least that's what she thinks. As it turns out, she kind of did, considering the Tywin, obviously, spoilers. I should hope I don't have to say this, but there's spoilers that Tywin obviously dies because of his own hubris. I mean, we've seen this again and again, characters dying and being punished because of hubris. Oberyn, of course, because of he couldn't let it go. He had to keep, I want you to admit it, I want Tywin to pay for this. And of course, Tywin, he cannot let it go. He has to say, "You whore, what a whore that was," and he has to sit fine. After he just said, "You're my son," now after he gets shot, he's like, "Nope, never son of mine would shoot me." I mean, Charles Dance does such an amazing job that he makes these ludicrous statements like, "Oh no, we wouldn't have executed you." Wink. I mean, he makes it sound so convincing. "You're my son. We would never have convicted." Oh. What? And you're not. You're really tall. You're taller than I am. And make you actually think that he's telling the truth. But I don't know. I mean, it's so different in a lot of ways from how the book is with his whole escape that it's just done so differently. I don't even know what to think about that. It's just different. Now, the thing is, I have to take it now as its own thing because it's not really such a great adaptation of this particular storyline anymore, but I do think it's effective just from a television perspective. I don't quite think the Tyrion Shay thing was earned enough. It was 100% earned with killing his father. But the rest, I don't know. All right, I think we should wrap it up. So let's do that. So, as I look back at this episode, obviously the Bran stuff I thought was a little weak. The Daenerys stuff I thought was poignant. I definitely liked the stuff north of the Wall with Jon Snow. I thought that was good. It was important to get to that point. And I really did like the sort of splitting off the parallel arcs of Tyrion and Arya both leaving on opposite sides of the continent. One boxed up, literally boxed in, and the other one looking out over the bow for the potential magical future ahead. And I don't know, that worked for me. I like that kind of symbolism. It was interesting. Even if there were some things that I didn't like how they adapted it, if I just take it as what it is, I feel like for the most part it's deserved. I mean, the way they do things in the book, Jaime says something to Tyrion, he makes a confession, and I'm not going to give it away just in case they bring it up later, but it basically makes Tyrion really mad, and he's like, now no one loves me. The truth is, Jaime always felt like that point in the book, that he was finally like saying, I gotta come clean, and he's trying to do the right thing, and Tyrion just can't deal with it. He blows everybody off, and he shouldn't really, in my opinion, but it's an important point for what happens next to both of their characters. So, I don't know how they're going to deal with it. I feel like there's a lot they could go from here, and some of the storylines are very close to the book, so they might as well just keep going with that. Other ones, they've really diverged, so I guess I'm not really sure what's going to happen. In general, I thought the episode was pretty good. there were some segments, like I said, that I wasn't such a fan of. But man, I got those chills. Melisandre looking out. That was just like that worked on me. And I like the ending part. I like how that happened. It was a decent way to end the episode. I know there's some people who are unhappy about a specific reveal not happening here, which did happen in the books, but I guess I'm okay with it, and I don't, I'd have to get into so many spoilers to talk about it, but I really feel like it does not have to be in this season. The thing that people are talking about probably should be addressed at some point, but I think I'm fine with it. I think the episode was okay. It wasn't my favorite, but it worked pretty well. And there are definitely parts that really worked well. So I guess that about wraps it up for today. Next time I'm going to be talking about my sort of overall thoughts of the season and how I think they're going to go from here, what I thought about the best versions of adapting it and what were the worst, what were the best episodes, least best episodes, best death, least worth death, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And you may be surprised about what I think about some characters. For example, I think Hodor is pretty damn Hodor. All right, that wraps it up for me for today. Thanks for stopping by.